Hey guys, Mike here. Welcome to part 4 of my Furioso Librarian Dreadnought paint tutorial. And for the first time we're actually going to do some legitimate painting with a brush, no less. But just a quick update for those who watched the last video. As you can see, if you look at the decal, you cannot tell where, it begins and ends. It just looks completely painted on, or at least I think so. I hope you can tell. I've also what I had to do, I had to do about 2 more coats of the micro sole and just pop a few of the bubbles with a pin, and that seemed to just stick it down well. And then I painted the Valero gloss varnish on top, let it dry, and then I've applied a satin varnish to the whole model, including the arms, to knock down the gloss a bit to make this next stage a bit easier. So this is part 4. So this is all about painting nice uniform, base colours. And so what we're going to do, we're going to paint the blue areas, and we're going to be painting it Valero Game Colour Imperial Blue. GW equivalent is Regal Blue. It's a really nice, deep blue. I'm just giving the pot a bit of a shake. So whenever I paint, I use a palette, and I always dilute my paints 1 to 1 at least. So for every drop of paint, I'll have a drop of water. In fact, this time around, I'm not just using water. I'm using water with a bit of with a flow enhancer in it, diluted 1 part flow enhancer to 20 parts water. Well, basically it's just what it says on the flow enhancing medium. You dilute it 1 part to 20 parts water, and so I'm actually using that to thin, so the paint will be really smooth, will flow easy off the brush. So just mix that round. For those interested, I'm using a Da Vinci Maestro Series 10. This is a Kolinsky sable brush, size 1. This is like the best brush I've ever owned. Basically, I look after it. It's got a really nice point on it. So basically, grab the model. Right, you don't want to load your entire brush with paint. What I tend to do is I tend to put my brush in the paint halfway up the bristles, and then sort of just wipe it on a paper towel to get rid of actually most of it. So you end up, you can see, it's damp, but it's not soaking. And that's, if you use this, you're not going to be able to get full coverage, as you can tell now as I'm painting this on. It doesn't, it's not going to cover in 1 coat. That's what we want. We want a nice thin coats, so we don't obscure any detail. Because we can just go over it again, do another coat out in a minute. And once you've you've painted an area, just leave it, move on. If you keep prodding around with the paintbrush on the acrylic as it starts to dry, you'll be just sorry if you can see that. You'll just be pushing and pulling the acrylic around the pigment, and if a layer is almost dry, and then you touch it with your brush, you might just lift it up again, and you get these like horrible like kind of like watermarks, I guess. So yeah, you just nice smooth coats. Although this is time consuming, don't get me wrong, but if you did this straight from the pot, it'd just be really thick, and you're just going to end up imprinting brush strokes and all your work. And because I'm painting this to sell, I want it to look good. Don't want it Don't want to have to break out Photoshop and try and hide the roughness of my paint. So basically I'm just going to carry on going around this area until this first coat's applied, and then I'll come back and show you the second coat going on. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I've just finished the first coat of blue, and as you can tell, you know, it's looking a bit ropey in places, but that's fine because the second coat will probably make it uniform, maybe a third coat if needed. Another good reason for using thin paints and making sure you don't overload the brush with them is that they dry quite quick. I mean, you can put a brush stroke down and, you know, gently blow on it and it'll dry. And then you can just put it on again and again and again really quickly, and you know, so yeah, there's not a lot of pigment on each stroke, but the fact that you can put down 5 or 6 strokes in a minute will speed it up. So hopefully you can tell this is now getting much smoother coverage. And there's no sort of brush stroke showing. There's no way you can really go wrong with this method. If you're brushing on paint straight from the pot, you know, once a brush stroke has appeared, and you know, because the paint's thick, it's a three-dimensional, you know, thing, that brush stroke. No amount of putting more paints on top is ever going to truly hide it. So once you've got one, yeah, that's it. It's on the miniature now for the rest of its paint job usually. So, you know, I like to be careful, and this offers a lot more control, paint like this. So the cool thing is that if let me move this down a bit. If you know, if I make a mistake and I go on somewhere I don't want, like the red, it's only going to be a thin bit of paint on top of that satin varnish I put on before, so it'll be dead easy to remove without ruining any of the paint underneath. And you know, I wouldn't have to paint over it to hide it. I can just remove it, which is a good thing, because you know, because I use the airbrush to do the shading. Imagine you made a mistake right on an area where there's like it's a gradient. You know, you can't just paint over a flat colour to try and hide it, because it needs to match the surrounding gradient. So yeah, I always advocate varnishing models all the time throughout the paint job. You know, you want to save all that hard work you've done. Make sure you don't ruin it. And I think really an airbrush is what you need to do that effectively, because airbrushes spray on such a thin coat of paint or varnish that you really, you know, I could be varnishing this after every other brush stroke and you probably wouldn't make a difference. And it also doesn't matter if you get paint where you don't want it. Like, I've got blue paint all over this guy's head. It's fine, because that bit's not going to be staying that colour, obviously. It was easier to get paint on his head than being too careful trying to get in the gaps between them. So I'm going to keep doing this, and hopefully when you're back I should have a nice uniform colour. It might be the end of this coat, I might have to do another coat afterwards, but in any case I'll be back when it's all smooth. See you in a bit. Okay guys, so I had to put another 2 coats and a few touch-ups to get it to be smooth enough for my liking. Except, well, the head's not smooth, but I wasn't trying to cover the head really. That'll be painted gold later on. So yeah, so just the the key points, you know, thin your paint, thin it at least 1:1 with water. You know, don't completely overload your brush. You want, you know, there's my brush there, and you want like that much paint on it. You know, halfway up the bristles really, and you know, and then get rid of the excess. You know, when you put it into your paint, you'll probably get a big wet blob on the end. You know, get rid of that. You know, you want it so that when the brush touches the model, there's no pools of water. You can just see the sort of dampness of where, you know, the paint is going, but there's no sort of surface moisture. You want it so that by the time you've almost finished a long stroke, the beginning part of that stroke is already drying, and then that way you can just very quickly, you know, layer and layer and layer and layer. Like, I didn't go over the whole thing in, you know, on the second coat and then do a third coat. I was going over areas on the third coat and then or the second coat, doing a little bit more, and then going back to that other area and painting that in again. So it's all sort of like, you know, just looking at it and, you know, putting an extra layer on where you think you need it. Yeah, if you've got like flow improver stuff, use that as well in the water. That really helps. Stops the paint want to pool on the surface. Especially, you know, if it's thin and you've put too much, there's too much paint there on the end of the brush. Any mistakes you've made, and I've made, there's a tiny dot of blue in there. Because of the varnish, I'm just going to use a cocktail stick, and I'll just, you know, just rub it off, scratch it off. I think there might be a few mistakes near the bottom as well. I'm not sure. I'll have a look around and just check. And I'm completely happy with the blue. I'll show you this. That is where all the paint, you know, excess paint from the brush goes. So I'll load up on paint here, and my paintbrush will be like that. You know, big dollop of paint on it, and I'll just, you know, draw it along very gently, get most of the moisture out, so then, you know, I can control that much better. Yeah, so I end up covering paper towels in all sorts of weird lines of colours. So yeah, what I'm going to do between now and the next video, I'm not sure what the next video is going to be. Probably parchment. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll do that. Next video will be all about painting these sort of like banners and parchments and things. And what I'll do is I'll do them, you know, from start to finish, so they'll be completed. And then after that would be going along and edge highlighting things, or maybe doing the metallics, or I might just skip the metallics and just, you know, well, paint the metallics on in the meantime, so that next time you see me, all the base coat for that will be done. So I'm going to go over the whole model essentially and just base coat the all the different coloured areas the same way that the blue, and so that next time you see this model it should look a lot more colourful, including the arms as well. And then I'll go along how I do the banners and purity seals and, you know, parchment and things. Yeah, so if you've got any comments, questions, or advice for me, please let me know. Just put them in the comments. I really appreciate them. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, if you like these kind of videos. And I will see you next time. Take it easy, guys.